Welcome to There Is a Method to the Madness. I am Rob Maxwell, and I'm an exercise physiologist. In the Method to the Madness, I explore with you why things may or may not work in the realm of health and fitness. I use science to explain what you really need to know about the current events in fitness and what you should simply ignore. Are these claims madness, or is there method behind them? Let's explore them. And in today's podcast, I'm going to tackle amino acid supplementation. But before I do that, let me thank our sponsors, Jonathan and Lynn Gilden at the Gilden Group at Realty Pros. They currently have over 275 star reviews on Zillow and over 100 million sold between the two of them. I'm telling you right now, their goal is to provide you the highest quality of customer service. If you go anywhere these days, I think we know customer service is on the decline, but not with these folks. Jonathan and or Lynn can be reached at 386-451-2412 or at thegildengroup.com, and I will link their website into the notes of this podcast. You can easily click and pick out your new home. How's that? Pretty good plug. So, amino acids. I'm going to take you back on a little journey. I think it was around 1992, and I was at my graduate class, one of my exercise physiology classes at UCF. We had a pretty small program, pretty relaxed, and it was Dr. Roeder who ran it for the most part, and Mr. Gergley. They were both my advisors, and I would call them friends. Good guys. I'd probably been in the program a year already or so, and I knew them pretty well. And it was a pretty small program. It was like 24 people in total. So I was kind of the muscle head of the group still. Out of 24, I'd say like 22 of the kids were into endurance sports. Pretty much everybody in the program was into fitness. You didn't get into ex-phys and, not be interested in physical fitness. So everybody was into something, but most of them were into triathlons, which they got me into there soon after, but at this point I was still the lunk. I was still the weightlifter guy. Just came off a bodybuilding show. That actually kind of worked out good for me though, because my professors would use me a lot to talk about that aspect of it. So that's cool. So one night I'm there and I'm talking to Dr. Roeder, and I don't really even remember how we got started on the subject. But I started talking about amino acids, and I mean amino acids in the sense of supplementing with amino acids. Now, amino acids are the building blocks of protein. So when you eat a protein substance, they are broken down. It's broken down into amino acids, and there are 9 essential amino acids, and essential means your body can't produce it, so it's got to come from your food. And there are 11 non-essential, which means your body can make that out of other food substances. So the essential are the ones you really have to make sure that you digest. And again, that's in protein style foods. So yeah, you need amino acids. There's no question about that. Now, the question is, do you need to supplement them? All right. So I was talking to Dr. Roeder, and I was going on and on about how, I would take them. And he says, do they work? And I said, well, yeah, they worked. Sure. I think they work. He's like, okay, so why do you think they work? And I said, well, I've taken them, and, they seem to work, and everybody takes them. I had kind of no answer other than my own experience. And, let me tell you, I was as bad as anybody today that just goes and tries things that, really aren't peer-reviewed and shown in the scientific world to work. I can remember being at the gym in New Smyrna, and this guy that I knew would always show up to the gym with his gym bag, and he would have some, I think it was Universal, I don't remember what brand it was, but Universal amino acids, and they were like, he'd have like 20 bottles of them in his gym bag, and we'd be like, hey, let me get one of them from you. And I don't know, he probably sold them to us for $20, and there was like other silly supplements, thankfully nothing drug related or illegal, but other things we would grab from him. And in the gym world, people are just going to take things they think work, and it's really so ridiculous. So, that's kind of how I got started on them. And I think that's how a lot of people get started on things like that, is somebody who looks the part, is using them, and even potentially selling them, and then you start taking them. So, I really did think that they worked. I thought that they were sort of a, just holding my cards, like, this is something that works that maybe everybody doesn't know about. But in any event, bring it back to my meeting with Dr. Roeder. So he says, well, all right, so here's what you're going to do. This is going to be your whole class grade. And I thought, you mean like for tonight? He says, no, it's a project for the class. It's a research class. So we just so happen to be talking about this. Perfect timing, he says. So you're going to do a complete research study on the effects of supplemental amino acids, and you are going to report this back to the class when everybody else does their end of term reporting on a particular issue. And I thought, okay, fair enough. So most of the class that semester was just on that. We would be researching our own particular subject area, and I was researching amino acids. I still have that research somewhere in my filing cabinet behind me. So I went off to the library, and thankfully back in those days, we didn't do our research via Google and via other apps, which I'm not saying you can't get some good general information, but peer-reviewed studies are not where you're going to you're not going to find them on Google, at least not to read with your own eyes. Somebody might break them down for you. So I started to conduct my research, and I was pulling up, I don't remember all the different journals, but all the big ones that count: the medical journals, the ACSM, American College of Sports Medicine journals, the Sports Medicine Report journals, everything that was reputable at the time, and pulling them up and pulling them up and pulling them up and reading them and writing it. And, I was getting a little bit discouraged as I went, because it basically was stating what they're going to state over and over today, which is basically what I did in the intro to this podcast, which is, yes, you need amino acids. Of course you do. Just like you need other food substrates, just like you need carbohydrates, and carbohydrates are broken down into glucose, so you need glucose. Fat is broken down into free fatty acids, so you need free fatty acids. And you need protein, and protein's broken down into amino acids. But there was absolutely nothing in the literature that stated supplemental amino acids in the liquid form. And Twin Lab used to make some that was disgusting, that you poured into a tablespoon and drank. I mean, it was disgusting. And then most manufacturers made them just in capsule form, tablet form, and that's usually what I took. And there was nothing in the research that said that they worked. So that was a bit discouraging. Now, what if you didn't get enough protein through your diet? So could these amino acids then bring you back up to speed, or bring you up to speed? And the answer was no, because just because they were the amino acid, like maybe the 9 essential, or if you took all 20, you can get them in different varieties. You can get them today in triaminos, the BCAA aminos, branched chain amino acids. So, there's different forms you can get them in. And I'm not saying none of them work today or whatever. I'm talking very specifically to the 9 or 11 or total amino acid supplementation done that I did at the time. And it basically said no, because there was no guarantee that these amino acids were going to be broken down and absorbed like amino acids that come from food. So in other words, there's been a lot of studies that have said, take the nutrient out of the food, macronutrient or micronutrient, and it's not going to digest in the same way that it does with the food. So kind of common sense says there's something within the food and all the digestive enzymes that help you utilize this. So to make a long story short, I took all of my research and I wrote it up nicely, typed it up, of course. Back in those days, I had to type it up, do a complete report, and then take an hour and bring my research to the class, explain it, open myself up for questions. And most of the students at the time had similar type subject matter. And before I did, of course, I brought it to Dr. Roeder sheepishly and, sat down. He's got a smile on his face, and he says, "So what'd you come up with, Maxwell?" I said, "Yeah, they don't work." He said, yeah, they don't. So, what makes this even more interesting, though, is then I think like everybody, sometimes I'll read something, see something, and say, I'm going to give this a shot again. So shortly after that, maybe within a year, I can't really remember. I just remember deciding to try some amino acids in the tablet form again as sort of a recovery after workouts and stuff. And I think I'd started to get more into cardio then. But in any event, I remember trying them and feeling like they were doing absolutely nothing for me. And, that's when I really realized the old placebo effect, which means that if you think something works, it's going to work more. And there is a lot of evidence in the scientific community that backs up placebo. So don't just poo-poo that. Placebo really does work, and they've known that in the medical industry for a very, very long time. And if you saw some of the double-blind studies on different medications where people think they're getting an effect from antidepressants, and then it turns out they're in the study and they were part of the control group that was not getting the antidepressant, but they thought they were, and they were showing signs of less depression and less anxiety. It's amazing. It's really amazing what the brain can do, and I absolutely believe in that. So my conclusion then came to, as I shared with the class then, and I'll share with you, was that they worked in a sense when I was a young punk 18, 19-year-old, only because, well, number one, I don't know if it was exactly them that worked. I mean, I was young, I was working out hard, I had a good diet, so that was probably a huge factor. And then the second thing was, I believe they did. Other than that, though, taking them as the pill form did not work at all. And since then, I've seen study after study after study on supplementation that more or less states the same thing. It basically states it is absolutely best to get all of your supplements in the form of real food. Eat your food. That some can be outright dangerous, because you may or may not know, but the FDA doesn't regulate many supplements, so you're up to the mercy of manufacturers as far as what's in them. And this goes down a whole nother rabbit hole if I open this up, but a lot of people are like, well, that's okay, I don't trust these regulators and I don't want these people in my life, so to say. And I'm like, no, not me. I think I'm going to trust these guys, even though they may make mistakes, FDA and all that stuff, maybe, but they've been trained and they're looking at this stuff and, they're deciding what's safe. I mean, I'm going to trust those guys over, Billy Bob over here making some concoction in his shed that swears up and down he's done everything he should do to sanitize and be safe. No, thank you. Nope. Because we all know when somebody wants to make a buck, they're going to cut corners. Absolutely. And if there's not some watchdog looking over them, they're going to do whatever the hell they want to do. So, just be mindful of that a lot of supplements are not under FDA regulations, and basically can even be, they could even lie and state that they do certain things, and then if you read the fine print, it says may and all this kind of stuff. Now, I'm not saying that's true with Centrum and multivitamins and B vitamins and D vitamins. No. I'm talking about some of these, off the shelf, bottom shelf things that you really got to watch out for as far as safety goes. The worst thing that can happen with, say, a multivitamin or a B complex and all that is you pee it out, you excrete it out, it did not get absorbed as it stated it would, and you spend some money. And I'm not saying that's true with all vitamins. I'm really keeping this to amino acids. I'm just, trying to be fair and state you do have to be careful when you buy certain supplements that are not FDA approved because they were never looked at, and you might think they're safer because they're an herb versus a real drug, a synthetic drug, but that is not true always. The drug has been researched, the herb has not, so you got to be careful with that. Now, again, with multivitamins and all that, the safety on them is very, very safe, and I'm not saying none of them work. I mean, I take a multivitamin. I'm just taking that understanding that it's going to possibly help a little bit. And worst case scenario is I spent a little bit of money and I might pee it out if I didn't use it. So just keep in mind that the biggest downfall to some of these things is they're going to make claims, you're going to spend the money, and then it's not going to work. That's what you got to look out for with a lot of these things. So you have to decide if you want to do that. And again, I'm keeping this to amino acids, but I'll be looking at different claims all week this week. Do you want to take them or not? When it comes to amino acids, I'm going to be very clear with you people. Don't get it from your food. Number one, you don't need nearly as much protein as you're led to believe that you need. You don't. Protein is a repair macronutrient. It is not a building macronutrient like it's sold, meaning you only need enough to repair, and that's only about 20% of your diet. Hear me? 20%. So supplementing with extra amino acids 9 times out of 10 is very, very unnecessary. And every study I've ever seen on all these things says it's always better to get your macros and your micronutrients or your vitamins and minerals from real food. All right? So that's the real deal. Taking amino acid supplementation, pills, or Twin Lab, or any of that crap, madness. Getting all your nice macronutrients and micronutrients from food, well, there's a method to that. All right? All right. So let's thank our second sponsor, this Turkish Mediterranean cuisine, Istanbul. They are absolutely fantastic. They have great salads, great vegetarian dishes, and they're located in Ormond Beach, Florida. And you could place an order or check them out at their website at istanbulflorida.com. Until next time, be Max Fit and be Max Well.